It's time for another edition of RSPW Rewind. We just saw The Undertaker sit down on the WWE Network with Stone Cold Steve Austin for an interview about his career. So, I thought it would be appropriate to start with a couple of threads about who else? The Undertaker. This first one is from Ryan Grant on April 6th, 1999. A post titled, "This is the worst thing ever on Raw," which was a quote, wasn't a statement so much as it was a quote taken directly from Jerry the King Lawler on Monday Night Raw during one of the angles that they did. I don't know exactly what the context was, but Ryan is no fan of the Ministry of Darkness. He says, "You said it, King. I've seen a shitload of lame from WWF over the years. I held my nose and smiled during the Imposters angle. I actually kind of liked TL Hopper and the Goon. I was pissed off when they screwed Brett, but at least that sort of tangentially involved wrestling. The Ministry of Darkness, though, is a big heaping fresh steaming pile of horse shit. Bobo Guerrero can sleep easy now because the gobbledygooker is no longer the low point in WWF history. McMahon screaming, 'You evil bastard,' into the camera was not moving, touching, interesting, or anything else that would justify it being on my TV screen. It was funny, in the lamest, most pitiful sense of the word. When the Ministry wasn't the alpha and the omega of the WWF, I could shrug them off, because it was just a minor little angle. Now that they're the whole effing show, I give up. It's an indefensible angle. Will it sell more WWF stuff to the goth community? The way Bogus Prophet suggested? Probably. But for the love of Christ, is appealing to that market really worth it? Will angry Amish Undertaker really bring that many more fans and that much more money into the WWF? I don't think it will. Will it eventually cost them viewers? I think so, and I hope so. I talked to a lot of WWF fans here, and lately it's been me who hosts the pay-per-view parties, and not a single person has ever had anything to say about the Ministry. Nothing positive, nothing negative, just apathy. So remember to watch Raw, everybody, so you can see the absolute irrefutable proof that Vince McMahon is not a booking genius. Watch as the WWF drops trow and shows us their single worst creation ever. Watch so that the next time a lamest ever thread pops up, you can say with pride of a survivor, "You think RoboCop was lame? You obviously didn't see the heaping pile of suck. That was the Ministry of Darkness." It's a shame that the one time the wrestling content on Raw actually comes off smelling like daisies, they have to have manure like this to obscure the pleasing smell. So Ryan was pretty adamant there that he was no fan of the Ministry of Darkness. Danger 3210 chimed in. "The Ministry scenes on Raw likely aren't what I have a problem with. This sacrificing Ryan Shamrock will just lead to a Ken Shamrock-Undertaker feud. Only thing I have a problem with is when they cross that fine line from over-the-top angle to complete stupidness, like hanging people and making guys drink your blood. Also, I wish The Undertaker could wrestle a good match again, which he has not done for 10 months. I thought Vince screaming into the camera, though, was hilarious." Morpheus 27 chimes in. "I was at the taping for Raw at Nassau Coliseum, and believe you me, we all hated watching that stupid angle play out. It's too bad you didn't see the 10 minutes it took for the stagehands to lay the cross out, and then the 5 minutes the wrestlers just hung around, holding the cross waiting for their cues. You would have booed even louder. But had I seen the Heat interview segment prior to or during the tapings, maybe it would have sat a little bit differently with me. They played a couple of interview segments during the show, but a lot of them were done after the taping, so it was hard to figure out where things were going. Playing up The Undertaker as someone who is living his gimmick a little too strongly is the way to go. The thing is, cracks have to start to show in the Ministry for it to work better. The Brood leaving would be good, starting to show, chinks in the armor here. Since the Brood is wasted anyway, them leaving would be a good thing. I heard Vince McMahon is supposed to face Undertaker at SummerSlam, so maybe by then things will have resolved itself. In any event, I think it's one small step for Vince to turn face down the road. I'm a firm believer in the coup angle whereby Shane steals the company from his father and tries to run things his way. Thereby, Vince can only turn to one man, Stone Cold. July 27th, 1999. Danger 3210 is back with a post titled, The Undertaker Losing the Supernatural Shit? And 3 question marks. Not the NWA question mark, actual question marks. He said something about no more special effect entrances, just kicking ass now. Does this mean he will be returning to the badass biker guy, which they showed last night on Sunday Night Heat? Even though he is in desperate need of a vacation, I do want to see the badass biker guy return and destroy guys like he used to. Now, what's weird about what I just read to you is that this post referencing badass biker guy, and I hope badass biker guy comes back, this was posted a year before we first saw the American Badass debut at Judgment Day. This post was from July of 1999. American Badass did not debut until May of 2000. Now, I did go back and I watched that episode of Sunday Night Heat that he referenced. That was the pre-fully loaded 99 episode of Heat, the night of the pay-per-view. And we see The Undertaker in the back coming into the building with Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer is just wearing a t-shirt. I mean, his pants are barely... he was in physically just terrible shape at that point. I don't know that I've ever seen Paul Bearer fatter than he was here in this video. And Undertaker walks into the building and he's in his street clothes. So I guess to Danger Man over here, this was the biker version of The Undertaker. That's how he described him. He looked like a biker to people, well, even though there was no bike. But that was kind of weird. Seeing a bring back badass biker taker reference a whole 10 months before he actually debuted that character on TV. The exact Undertaker quote that he was referencing, by the way, was this. The days of scary music and scary entrances are over. The days of Armageddon are upon us. So Zip replied and said actually his most interesting interview would have to be the one where he said, I've crippled more people than polio. I marked out hard for that line. That is a great line. I wish I knew what promo that was from. I vaguely remember that. That actually was a great line. Randomly, I came across, we get away from the Undertaker stuff here now. Randomly, I came across this gem of a post from July 1st, 2000. A post by The Big Crapper, titled RSPW seems to have a size complex. He says, no, not that kind of size complex, a height and weight complex. People bash the Giants saying that 5'8" guys can clean their clocks. A lot of guys said Kidman could beat Hogan. S.A. Rios could beat The Undertaker. When did people say S.A. Rios could beat The Undertaker? I don't remember hearing that. I mean, maybe S.A. Rios could have beaten up The Undertaker. I mean, some of those guys, look, you heard stories about Hunico, right? Hunico Sin Cara. You don't want to piss that guy off. He'll throw a soda can at your head. Maybe S.A. Rios had this tough personality I've never heard about before. Anyway, he continues. Unless the little guy is Gracie and is educated in the art of breaking limbs, he's going to get crushed by the bigger guy. I am a skilled, trained martial artist, and I'm the one telling you this because I know. You would think I'd be telling you size doesn't matter, but in a fight, 99% of the time that is the deciding factor. I just think RSPW has been bullied by big guys and likes to attack them. Sure, it's possible to beat bigger guys, you can kick a guy's knee out quite easily, but you have to know what you're doing, and few people do. So while I am not saying that you're wrong in saying that a man of smaller size can beat a bigger man, that is entirely possible, but don't make it sound as if it's always a case where the smaller guy is the odds-on favorite. Okay, so that was the Big Crapper. Now, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with what he said. He's coming from a place of personal experience, and he's relaying what his thoughts are about the big guy facing the little guy in a fight and all that. Nothing wrong with that. Well, there was some banter back and forth between the Big Crapper and a lady named Molly, who had the line of the week here in her response to something that the Big Crapper said earlier in the thread. She said, see, Mr. Crap, I don't consider being a woman a disadvantage. The fact that you do just demonstrates your short-sightedness. I am a woman who is 5 feet 10 and a competitive kickboxer. I have studied Taekwondo for 10 years. I can bench 250 and I was a runner-up for the Miss Maryland pageant. I only mentioned that last one to demonstrate that my athleticism has not affected my femininity. Plus, I am 20 credits shy of my doctorate, so don't talk down to me. You fear the vagina. Don't be ashamed, most men are not comfortable enough with their masculinity to accept a strong woman. In fact, unless the woman is docile, 98 pounds, and has an IQ to match her weight, you cower in fear. I pray you never have a daughter. You fear the vagina is not a statement I expected to be reading aloud this week, but here we are. And finally, there is this post, the main entree of the segment this week. Although I don't know how I could ever top vagina fear, but I will try. I wonder if there's a clinical term for that, like a phobia? Vaginophobia, maybe? Labiophobia? I don't know. This here is a post about the WCW World Title from July 7th, 1998, the day after Bill Goldberg pinned Hollywood Hogan on Monday Nitro at the Georgia Dome to win the WCW World Title. This is a post from J-Dog. That's a D-A-W-G. That's the cool way of saying it, I guess. J-Dog. Now, Goldberg winning the title on free TV instead of a big pay-per-view main event that WCW could have made a lot of money on was always a questionable decision. But putting the title on Goldberg was not because of how damn over he was. It was the right call. J-Dog didn't seem to think so. This is what he said. Now that Goldberg is the world champion, it's a very exciting time for us fans. Now we get to look forward to Goldberg defending the title against such worthy opponents as Fit Finlay, Disco Inferno, Bryan Adams, Vincent, Chavo Guerrero, La Parka, Reese, Canyon, Steve McMichael, Roadblock, Sick Boy, and maybe in 2 or 3 months we'll get all treated to a main event on the biggest Nitro of all time of Goldberg versus Glacier. I tell you, WCW is on a freaking roll. Oh yeah, what does this do to that Hogan versus Bret Hart headliner at Starrcade? I got a better angle. Eric Bischoff gets fired and takes a job at Titan Sports for $20,000 a year. His official position will be Mr. McMahon's bitch. So that was J-Dog's position on this whole Goldberg winning the world title thing. Clearly he was not a big fan of this. One of the few, I think, who was not a big fan. Not that Goldberg had his haters and his detractors, but I would think that most people with common sense would realize that the end result of this Goldberg push was going to be him winning the world title because he was super over. There's no denying that. You don't have to like Goldberg to know that the guy was the most popular guy on the WCW roster. So that was from J-Dog. And we end with this reply to J-Dog's post. You're right. They should have kept the title on Hogan. They should have pissed off the 30,000 or so fans who bought tickets to the Georgia Dome to see Goldberg win. They should have kept the title on Hogan so that we get a title match perhaps once every 3 months on Nitro. Face it, both guys suck in the ring. Right now, Goldberg is more over than Hogan is. A long-term Goldberg reign is probably not a great idea. But who knows? Putting the belt on him at Nitro was the right thing to do for business at that moment in time. Many of you may not think that is the case. All you need to do is go to a house show and talk to all the marks and ask them who the man is. They're going to tell you it's Goldberg. And the marks are at least 80 to 90% of the total wrestling audience, and they're the people that pay money, buy the pay-per-views, buy the shirts, etc. Some of you are going to say, no way, there are a lot more smart fans than 10 or 20% of the audience. Right. How many times have you gone to a house show and really talked to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about? Every time I go to a show, I see 500,000 marks and about 5 or 10 guys who are surrounded by a big crowd and telling everybody about the inside story about how he heard Scott Hall's been off television because he's been talking to Nash about how to get the Wolfpack back together and all that. Many people here on the internet have this inflated sense of how many smart fans there really are watching wrestling. Several times today, people wrote Nitro sucked, but it's probably going to win because it went up against a taped Raw. I'm afraid the live tape thing has done nothing whatsoever with the ratings. If you look back at the ratings, taped Raws have actually done better than live Raws on average over the past couple of years. This is not to say that every taped Raw does better than a live show. People seem to think that the majority of wrestling fans in the world get taping results before the shows air. This is not the case. Probably 3 to 4% of the total audience for Raw and Nitro this week knew the Raw taping results. I also heard Goldberg will be shitty as champion because none of the top guys are going to want a job to him. Therein lies the real problem with WCW right now. How many top guys have jobbed to Hogan lately? How many top guys have jobbed to Sting lately? How many top guys have jobbed to anyone lately? The top guys don't like to do jobs in WCW. They bitch, they moan, they tear out their knees, they pull a muscle in their back, whatever they can think of to get out of doing a job. And for a long time, WCW has allowed them to do that. Goldberg is going to work as a champion for the first time, being because the marks are apeshit for him. To them, he's the man. Whether a long-term Goldberg reign can be successful depends on how WCW books him. Right now, WCW has basically destroyed Hogan as champion for the time being, and they did it long before Goldberg beat him. He's been beaten clean and resorted to outside interference finishes so much that nobody takes him seriously anymore. This loss on Nitro certainly did not help, but people who say that Hogan's credibility is killed because he jobbed to a rookie are missing the point. It doesn't matter if Goldberg is a rookie. To the marks, he's an enormous monster who just kicked everyone's ass left and right and made him unstoppable. To the vast majority of paying wrestling fans, Hogan's loss to Goldberg was probably less of a blow to him than it had to be to Randy Savage or Roddy Piper or even Kevin Nash. A long-term Goldberg reign will fail if WCW continues to allow the top guys to get out of doing jobs to him. Feeding top guys like Scott Hall and Curt Hennig and Lex Luger and Sting to Goldberg won't kill them. In fact, feeding nobodies to Goldberg won't kill him for a while because he's beaten pretty much nobody since his debut, and he's still over like crazy. What WCW needs to do is tell the Hennigs and the Nashes in WCW to get their fat, lazy asses into the ring and do what's right for business. Nobody ever told Nash he was going to have to be the new Red Rooster. They just told him he had to do a job. Some of you may not like Goldberg. You may think he's a bad worker. You may think he doesn't sell enough. You may think he's green. It's easy to throw insider terms around and act like you know what's best for WCW or WWF. But all the insider fans here on the internet make up 5% of WCW, WWF, and ECW's total revenue. So truthfully, what you think means jack to them most of the time. The bottom line is this. Goldberg is over. He's selling tickets. He's selling t-shirts. He's helping draw ratings. 99% of the Georgia Dome and probably 90 to 95% of the folks watching on TV wanted him to win that damn belt from Hogan. It was the right move to give him the belt, and whomever said that half of you would have bitched no matter what happened could not have been more right. The author of that reply that I just read was Brian Alvarez, who then goes on to plug his Figure 4 Weekly. Says, send me your name and home address. Please do not send your email address, as this is not an email sheet. And I'll send you 2 free issues. Gotta get that plug there at the very end. And so this has been your weekly reminder that you never knew, back then, who might be lurking on RSPW.